Ever get that feeling?
Yeah.
Like you're hitting the same wall over and over. Not just a bad day, but deeper. Like some invisible script is keeping you stuck.
It's a common experience, actually. In many spiritual traditions, they'd call it needing a karma cleanse.
Karma cleanse.
Yeah.
Sounds kind of tense, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like I need a spiritual deep clean or something.
Right.
But what we're really talking about today is ditching those pesky negative patterns, those impurities our source material calls out.
And what's fascinating is how applicable this ancient wisdom still is. We're diving into Indian philosophy, but it's going to feel surprisingly relevant to your life with takeaways you can use starting today.
All right, so let's unpack this impurities thing. The source dives right into these 6 vikaras.
Okay.
Ready for this list?
Yeah, hit me.
Lust, rage, greed, unhealthy attachments, envy, and arrogance.
It's like the all-star lineup of what holds us back, isn't it?
Yeah.
But instead of seeing them as some abstract concepts, think about how these actually show up in your day-to-day.
That's what I appreciate about this source. It gets specific. For example, under unhealthy attachments, it's not just about clinging to possessions. It talks about being addicted to social media validation or constantly comparing ourselves to others. Like, ouch, that hits close to home for a lot of us, right?
Absolutely, and the source even breaks these down further. So alongside those big 6, we've got these sub-variants, cravings, that nagging negative self-talk, even just the trap of unhealthy comparisons. The key is recognizing them within ourselves, not beating ourselves up about it.
And, I've always found Buddha's way of categorizing these so helpful. Things that stick. It's like greed, we just can't get enough. Then there are things that spread, like anger. Yeah. It impacts everyone around us, too.
Like a ripple effect.
Exactly.
And finally, the things that are illusions. The source points to arrogance as a prime example. We puff ourselves up, but it's an unsustainable way to move through the world.
It's like that old saying, humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. So we've got these impurities identified. They're not just some esoteric concept anymore. We see them in ourselves, in our own lives. Now what? How do we actually start this whole cleansing process? So if we got these impurities identified, they're not just some esoteric concept anymore. We see them in ourselves, in our own lives. Now what? How do we actually start this whole cleansing process?
This is where things get really practical. The source emphasizes a mindful approach, and it's not about suppressing these feelings or desires altogether.
Right.
It's not realistic. It's more about becoming more aware of them and then consciously choosing how we respond.
So like with anger, for example, we don't pretend we don't feel it. It's more about...
Exactly. Consciously choosing a different path, choosing calmness. The source specifically mentions Vipassana meditation as a powerful technique for this.
Vipassana meditation. Now, you know me. I always need things broken down. What exactly is that?
It's an ancient Indian meditation technique, and it's all about cultivating intense self-awareness. But it's not just about noticing your thoughts and feelings.
Oh.
It's about observing those sensations without reacting to them, almost like watching them from a distance.
So with anger, instead of immediately snapping at someone, you're creating space between the feeling and your reaction.
Precisely. By observing your anger without judgment, you can start to understand its root causes, and then over time, develop healthier ways of responding.
Okay, that makes sense for things like anger and envy. But what about those unhealthy attachments? What kind of cleanse does the source suggest for those?
The source gets really interesting here. It talks about engaging in acts of generosity.
Right, like donating your time or money.
Yes, but with a crucial caveat. The source emphasizes that it's not about ego boosting or seeking recognition for your good deeds. It's about loosening the grip of those attachments by shifting your focus outward.
So it's not about the act itself, but the intention behind it. I'm picking up on a theme here.
Absolutely. It's recognizing that true fulfillment, that sense of inner peace, comes from within. It doesn't come from external validation or clinging to possessions.
Yeah.
It's about letting go.
Letting go. That's a powerful concept and not always easy. But it sounds like this whole karma cleanse is a process, not about being perfect overnight.
You've hit the nail on the head. The source is very clear about that. It's a continuous journey of self-improvement.
So if someone's listening to this right now, feeling like they've got some of these impurities to deal with, where do they even begin?
Well, I think it starts with that honest look inward. Remember that list: lust, rage, greed, unhealthy attachments, envy, and arrogance. Which of these resonates most strongly with your life at this very moment?
And don't forget those subvariants, those sneaky ones, like that voice of negative self-talk we can all have.
Oh, absolutely. Identify those. Then consider the strategies we've been discussing. Maybe Vipassana meditation to create space between your feelings and reactions, Or how about exploring acts of generosity, but with the right intention, giving from a place of abundance, not to fill a void?
And that's key, isn't it? Because the source was clear. Donating your old clothes to feel better about your shopping habit isn't exactly a karma cleanse.
Right.
It's about aligning your actions with your intention.
Precisely. Ask yourself, what motivates this action? Am I trying to impress others or truly help? Am I seeking inner peace or just checking off a box? Those are the questions that matter.
So it's not just about changing our actions, it's about changing our mindset, our approach to those actions.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so powerful. It's not about becoming a saint overnight. It's about those small, consistent steps, those shifts in perspective that over time can lead to profound change.
You know, this whole conversation reminds me of the ripple effect we talked about earlier. We start with ourselves with this personal karma cleanse, and who knows how far those positive vibes might spread.
It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? By addressing our own impurities, by cultivating more calmness, generosity, and self-awareness, we contribute to a kinder, more compassionate world around us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with this. What's one small step you can take today to start clearing out those impurities? Maybe it's taking 5 minutes for mindful breathing. Maybe it's reaching out to someone with a genuine compliment. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture, just a step in the right direction. Remember, progress, not perfection. And who knows? Maybe by cleaning up our own little corner of the universe, we contribute to something much, much bigger.